It's been the talker around Smashville for the last couple of days. Barry Trotz in as general manager, David Poile stepping aside at the end of the year. We hear from them both, get some insight from Barry Trotz on his thoughts on the future of the team and the future of John Hynes. Interesting topic. Plus, should the Nashville Predators just consider trading Juuse Saros at the deadline? We'll talk about it today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer and editor at InsideThePreds.com.
Well, in case you've been living under a rock for the past 48 hours or at any point during this weekend, or you missed yesterday's episode, which if you did, shame on you. The Nashville Predators GM of 26 years, David Poile, is stepping down at the end of the year. Barry Trotz, the first head coach in team history, is coming back to the team as its new general manager. Yesterday, we heard from them both. Big press conference at Bridgestone Arena. They did the whole spiel where they sat at the table and answered nice, questions and whatnot. And then they broke off into little groups. And that's when things got interesting. Plenty of bites and tidbits we're going to need to talk about. But first, Ann, you were there yesterday and you told me, you've been kind of told everybody that you're a newer Preds fan, kind of jumped on late. This was your first real Barry Trotz up close and personal experience. What'd you think?
This was my first Barry Trotz experience. So I was really looking forward to it because Barry Trotz, for somebody who did not live through the Barry Trotz era here in Nashville, there is an aura about his name for somebody who was let go as head coach. Mm-hmm. So, there's this thing about Barry Trotz, but I had never met him. So I was really looking forward to hearing from him yesterday, both in the big event and also just in kind of the smaller one-on-one conversations that we got to have. Barry Trotz knocked my socks off. Just full disclosure, he really knocked my socks off. I love how honest and open he was about sharing some things. He strikes me as outstandingly personable. I think he seems very wise. I liked a lot of what he had to say because this is a huge change for Nashville. And it's like, how do you talk through this transition? And there's some moving parts to it. There is the interesting complication that this was former head coach replacing former GM in that relationship with them. And I thought Barry Trotz was extremely forthcoming. I thought he was extremely honest. He's extremely engaging. And I get it. I get now, so many people were saying, bring back Barry Trotz as head coach. And I thought, why would you want to go back? Why do you want to do that? Having met him, I understand the draw to have him involved in the organization again. And having gone through the press conference, I'm actually really excited about what's next for Barry Trotz and for the Predators.
Yeah. I think we've gone on record before saying, I'm not sure Barry Trotz would be the right fit to coach this particular team.
Right. Yeah.
Based on where they are. But, he of course is kind of notorious for being a little bit hard on young players, especially forwards, when they make, mistakes here and there. It doesn't seem like he's going to have that same anti-child mindset when he's building this team, because as you mentioned, the core, the youth, he specifically called out Phil Tomasino and Cody Glass as two forwards he would like to build around. So luckily it seems like it's going to be more of a hands-off approach and wind up developing some younger players as opposed to just benching Colin Wilson for long periods of time. So that's good news.
Yeah.
The other thing, Anne, is, we got some insight on sort of how this all went down. There was a lot of people that on Twitter were saying, oh, yeah, finally the pressure got to David Poile. Ownership finally heard us, all this and all that. And, the team this year had something to do with it. And, it might have, but it seems like this was the plan since the summer. And yeah, it seems like the whole thing we talked about. Remember our read too much into meter that
Oh,
we
I
did in the
loved that.
offseason, overreacto meter?
Oh, I loved it. Yes.
And one of the things was Barry Trotz buying a house in Nashville. Well, I mean, it seems like that had something to do with it.
Yeah, it did. I thought it was very interesting because Sean Henry sort of laid out the actual timetable for all of this to unfold. And these conversations about retirement with David Poile and sort of the time frame actually started 3 or 4 years ago, where he sat down with Sean Henry and he said, "Look, this is kind of where I'm headed. This is sort of a time frame where I'm headed. Before I leave, though, the thing that I really want to make sure I do is make sure that the hockey ops is in such great condition that it can be a model for other teams in the league." And so David Poile talked about, that's one of the things that I really spent time focusing on, making sure that we had the best people and processes and software, and that we really had our hockey ops department in such a great place that it would be ready to hand over to the next person. So this is part of a long-term plan. David Poile retiring right now is not a surprise to anybody in ownership, anybody in leadership at all. The conversation one-on-one between Sean Henry and David Poile happened last year after the playoffs, around the draft time. And David Poile was very upfront and said, "Look, this is going to be my last year." So for people who feel like, David Poile's burner account on Twitter picked up the temperature of Smashville and sort of changed the trajectory of his career, that's not what happened.
And I think for me too, another big point, and was the hockey ops part of this. Barry Trotz made it very clear that he has a lot of respect for Scott Nickel, one of his former players, Brian Poile, Jeff Kelty, a lot of people in the front office. And he said he is going to be relying heavily on them. So I think that's maybe another aspect of this too, is, David Poile kind of wanted to protect his guys. And, look, if he kind of left this in ownership's hands, I don't know if ownership would ever pull the trigger on firing David Poile just because of, his status on the team, anything like that.
Mhm.
But I think David Poile kind of doing this on his terms and letting the team know ahead of time. It's like, here's the plan. Here's kind of what we're going to lay out. I think he did that also to protect his guys. Because look, if they fire David Poile, if he just kind of, resigns at the end of the season, whatever,
Right.
you have a coach search, you have a GM search, you have somebody who's going to kind of start over. I think there's probably a lot of people in Smashville that maybe would want that. But at the same time, there are people in this organization that I think have done a pretty good job. Scott Nickel, who's
Yes.
General managing down in Milwaukee. They've done a good job putting that team together. Jeff Kelty, also really good assistant GM. Brian Poile, we thought for a long time he was going to be the heir apparent to Nashville Predators GM. But I think this also ensures that a lot of the things that are working stay in place.
I agree.
That was important for David Poile, and also to an extent Barry Trotz. He's just like, look, I have good relationships with a lot of people here. I think highly of a lot of people, and I'm going to be, he was open. He's like, I'm going to rely on them a lot, especially the first little bit on the job.
Yeah. And I think this is really an ideal situation to transition a team that is where it's at, like the Nashville Predators are. You mentioned you're going to keep on these assistant GMs. How fortunate is Barry Trotz to have their experience under David Poile? Now, Barry Trotz is nobody's puppet. So I want to be clear about that. He was very upfront, like, I'm going to learn from these people. David Poile is going to be available in an advisory capacity. And how fortunate will Barry Trotz be? But Barry Trotz is going to Barry Trotz as well. So everybody, don't feel like this will be somehow David Poile pulling some strings, down the road or anything like that. Yeah. And also those assistant GMs, they're going to become general managers somewhere at some point in time, but it really is a great transitional situation for Barry Trotz.
Yeah, Barry Trotz is not the Evita of the Nashville Predators.
Although, you know what? I would love to see him sing from that musical.
I think he would rather be dead.
I will ask him someday.
Yeah, that should have been your follow-up question. Like when everybody's at the table, I was like, Coach, would you sing Evita?
Yeah. How do you feel about musical theater and its relationship with hockey?
Yeah. And then you'll be introducing yourself as Ann Kimmel, currently not affiliated with any outlet whatsoever.
100%.
Might have been worth it. Who knows? There's another interesting thing that came from this press conference. Barry Trotz, of course, talking about the future of the Nashville Predators, which includes a couple of players he would specifically like to build around, and his thoughts on John Hynes. Ooh, that's the juicy one everybody wants to talk about. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, taking a break and letting you know today's show is brought to you by our good friends at Built Bar. If you want a delicious treat but don't want all of the fat and calories, you gotta try a Built Bar. Ann and I have spoken openly about how much we love these things. They're the perfect healthy snack, whether you want a sweet but healthy dessert at night, whether you need a snack to get you through the gym, whether you're just heading out the door to grab a quick breakfast. A Built Bar and Banana does it for me, and it keeps me full until I have time to eat that first real meal of the day. So what makes these things so good? Well, for starters, covered in 100% real chocolate, unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond, but they're also packed with 17 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar, and just 130 calories. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at built.com. You still can, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club as well. At Walmart, walk to the pharmacy, grab a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And if you're at Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar variety box with our hit flavors like brownie batter and churro. Or just go to built.com and see all of the new flavors they have available. Pick your favorite and order them at built.com. All right, Ann, we have the NHL trade deadline coming up this Friday. It's March 3rd, and you can join us live on the Locked On NHL YouTube channel from 2 to 4 p.m. as the Locked On NHL host, me included, break down the biggest deals from across the league. We did this last year, and it was a ton of fun. It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Preds are going to be front and center. So there is going to be a lot of discussion to be had. We'll have a big old preview show on Friday morning and, of course, break down any big deals that come through. So be sure you to stay with us throughout the week. And back to the big news yesterday, which is the press conference from Barry Trotz and David Poile, and I guess Sean Henry too. But the big thing came after the whole dog and pony show at the the front table. It's when everybody kind of broke off in the groups, and then we had the opportunity to ask Barry Trotz some juicy stuff.
Yeah, that's where things really got interesting. And as kind of the conversations rolled on, we dove into some different topics. And one of the questions that someone asked Barry Trotz is, when a new general manager comes in, oftentimes they have their eye on a coach that they've worked with that may come in. Where do you stand on the future of John Hynes in this organization? Great question.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, you're asking this question to the future general manager who also has been for years a head coach in the NHL. So I think that is really a great perspective. Barry Trotz pointed out, and I thought this was great. He said, you know what? It's really easy to judge from the outside how a head coach performs. I think people think it's very easy to evaluate and judge a head coach. But he also very humbly and kindly pointed out, I've been a coach for a really long time. I understand what works in the locker room. I understand the relationships that you build on and off ice. I understand how outside of hockey factors affect players and how you have to relate to those things as a coach. And so he said, from my experience and from what I have observed so far, this is a well-coached team. John Hynes is, quote, a really good coach. So sit in that for a minute, folks.
And
sit in that.
And here come the fire Barry Trotz comments.
But he was very complimentary. And, he talked about some of the young players like Cody Glass and Juuse Parssinen and how they're doing. So I think he is observing, and he was upfront and said, my plan is I'm going to take the rest of this season and I'm going to sit back and I'm going to observe and I'm going to evaluate from the inside. And before I make any judgments at all about what's going to happen with John Hynes. And he did also say that his priority is to be as transparent as possible with John Hynes and the coaching staff and with the players when it comes time to communicate with them and to kind of talk through what he sees. So I think that people who had the expectation that here comes Barry Trotz, now the last thing we need is John Hynes fired. Come on, pull the trigger, Barry Trotz. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen this season, friends. And may I go just a step further in speculation and say,
why not?
Why not?
We have a 30-minute podcast.
I would go so far as to say I would not at all be surprised that John Hynes is the coach next season either. I'm not saying Barry Trotz committed to that by any means, but I would not be surprised if John Hynes gets to coach the last year of his contract.
Yeah. I mean, he spoke highly of him at the press conference. And look, he's not going to go out and crap on the head coach and be like,
of course not.
John Hynes kind of sucks. The fans are right. We'll see what we can come up with in the offseason.
I mean, I read Twitter and I know.
Yeah. I think Barry Trotz is somebody who kind of understands coaching situations too. I mean, this was a guy who got fired from the New York Islanders when half of his team was out injured. I think he's somebody who firsthand experience knows, okay, is it really the coaching? Right. Or are there other factors that just made the team as a team underperform this year, as a group? Yes. So I think he understands that. I think the other thing to keep in mind too is John Hynes only has a year left on his contract anyway. So I think we might see a situation. I know a lot of people were trying to read between the lines of yesterday's press conference stuff that shouldn't be read between, like, why wasn't John Hynes asked to speak? John Hynes that's not about him. That's not his day.
No.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of people were trying to look for signs, like they had just watched Indiana Jones and were deciphering clues around their house that there was a hidden treasure somewhere in their wall.
Yeah, this was not the Da Vinci Code press conference, friends.
Yeah, it's just not there. But look, I think, John Hynes, 1 year left on his contract. I think Barry Trotz, I do believe him when he say he has some respect. I agree. It wouldn't surprise me to see him back next year just as a 1 year. It's like, look, you got 1 year left on your contract. We'll see how things go. We'll see how things work together. And we'll see. I assume John Hynes' main directive from the front office is going to be, let's work on some of these players. Mm-hmm. Like, let's see if guys like Cody Glass and Phil Tomasino can take another big step forward with some more responsibility. And that's kind of how we'll see where things are at. So it wouldn't
Right.
surprise me on that, but it also equally wouldn't be a huge shock if he did just say, look, wasn't happy with the way the team went this season. So we'll pursue other options. It
Yeah.
wouldn't surprise me either way. But I think anybody who got out or listened to that press conference yesterday and got out of it, Barry Trotz, John Hynes, his time is running
Right.
out. Barry Trotz is going to bring in his guy. I didn't get that at all. And I don't think there is anything really that screamed that to me.
No, I agree. The other thing is to look at the situation that Barry Trotz is in and John Hynes. John Hynes is a younger coach coming into the NHL. Barry Trotz has coached in this league. He is one of the most respected head coaches that coached in the NHL. He is also new trying this general manager position. And so I really feel like Barry Trotz may have a better understanding. He certainly will have a better understanding of what it is like for John Hynes coming into this league and getting more experience under his belt. And I think he may have a better, more healthy perspective with John Hynes as they work together. So, let's give this partnership a chance and see what happens. And I'm with you. I would bet more towards John Hynes will be here next season. I think John Hynes will definitely finish the season in Nashville, and we'll see what Barry Trotz wants to do from there.
Yeah, I think my favorite bit of the press conference was Barry Trotz talking about kind of the concept of needing a rebuild, having a tank, and he said the biggest thing was, the Preds never really developed a number one center.
Yes,
which is true. Number one, again, why do you hate Colin Wilson that much, Barry Trotz? But it's interesting that he's kind of, and he went on to say, it's like, look, we haven't really developed a number one center, but look how many franchise defenders and goaltenders we've been able to
did.
Build. He's like,
yes.
this is our niche. Like, this is what we do well. And he flat out said, like, some teams get lucky, some teams, tank in the draft and wind up, with a franchise altering centerman, that way. But he also kind of made it clear. He's like, look, we need to kind of work on building them.
Yeah. I know a kid. I think we've got a couple kids we could work on that with on this team right now. So
he did speak very highly of Cody Glass again.
He did. And hey, I want to point out that the players, you have to remember, they came home from Arizona, arrived really late. You know who showed up and stood in back at this press conference? Captain Roman Josi, Juuse Saros, Jeremy Lauzon, and Cody Glass. So I think good for you guys.
Yeah, they're
Stop now. Okay. So I thought good for those guys for showing up and wanting to be a part of that. So shout out to those guys.
Hey, speaking of, who has for some reason emerged in trade talks recently? Juuse Saros. Okay, we're specify he's not necessarily in trade talks, but it was reported that he was one of the untouchables for the Nashville Predators. Mm-hmm. But that hasn't stopped apparently some teams from maybe showing some interest. And that led to the question, should the Preds consider trading Juuse Saros?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a moment. We are going to dive into untouchables and Juuse Saros and the trade in just a second. But first, we want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by another one of our great friends, Athletic Greens. And again, if you have listened to this podcast, Nick and I are big fans of Athletic Greens. They sent each of us a starter pack of their product, AG1. And Nick and I were both pretty blown away by this. AG1 is a delicious powder that gets you all of the healthy vitamins, minerals, adaptogens that you will want in your day, but to give you better gut health, more energy, optimized immune system. And look, if you hate taking all of those pills and vitamins and supplements and dividing them all out, you got to stick with AG1. So what is this stuff actually? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you are absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day. It is a special blend of ingredients that supports, again, things like gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, gives you that boost of energy. It keeps you going throughout the day, helps you recover from any sort of athletic activities you take part in, and works on things like focus and aging as well. AG1 is a simple, small habit that you can do once a day that's going to make a big impact on the rest of your day. So all you do, get up in the morning, take 1 scoop of AG1, put it in a glass of water and stir it up and drink it. No need to get out the giant bulky blender and a bunch of different ingredients. You just need 1 scoop, 1 glass of water. And here's the thing, AG1's lifestyle friendly. So if you're already committed to eating vegan, or you need to be dairy-free or gluten-free, this is a product that you can easily incorporate into your lifestyle. And it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, has no GMOs, it doesn't have any nasty chemicals or artificial anything. And here's the key, this stuff actually tastes really good. It has like a light sort of tropical vanilla taste. You'll have no trouble at all drinking your AG1 every morning. It's great. And it's going to cost you less than $3 a day. So you're investing in your health, and all you have to do is maybe not drive through the coffee store to get through your day. AG1 has over 7,000 5-star reviews, and Nick and I are pretty big fans too. Right now, it is time to reclaim your health, and you can arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just, again, 1 scoop once a day in a cup of water. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, our friends at Athletic Greens are going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune boosting vitamin D, and they're going to give you 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
All right, so here is the thing.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to say this and try not to push any buttons with you, Ann.
Okay.
So it was announced over the weekend when Elliot Friedman was talking about things the Predators might do. He mentioned there were 3 untouchables on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg, Juuse Saros.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue there may be 1 or 2 more that should be untouchable, but that's a different story for a different day.
Right.
People heard that Juuse Saros thing. Remember, there have been articles all season long from writers around the NHL on why the Predators should trade Juuse Saros, mainly because he is probably the best Nashville Predator and probably the guy that's going to get you the biggest return package.
Yes.
So apparently what happened was Elliot Friedman went back on the Jeff Merrick show, I guess either yesterday or maybe the day before. And he said the LA Kings, who are a really good team, desperate for goaltending, they might call the Predators on Juuse Saros. And apparently there are a few other teams that are in need of a goaltender as well. That has spurred a debate as to whether the Predators should consider Juuse Saros as a trade option, depending on the return. And I'm going to tee it up for you. What's your thoughts on this?
I have 2 schools of thought. There is the emotional hockey fan in me, and then there is the, okay, let's be objective fan in me. I emotionally don't even so much as think about it. This is the offspring of Pecorine. Why would you ruin our lives? That is the emotional response to this. And there's a little bit of logic beyond that I would go into as far as why you would want to keep Juuse Saros. Yaroslav Askarov, obviously, this kid is a phenom. He is young. He needs more time in Milwaukee. He needs more time before he's ready for the NHL full time. And I understand that. And, Juuse Saros is ours. He's ours. Get your own, develop your own. We did it right. Go figure yours out and do it. The business aspect of this is very different after this weekend, because I would have agreed with Elliot Friedman saying there are 3 untouchables. I think Roman Josi is still untouchable, mainly because he has a no trade clause or no move clause. I can't remember which one it is, but you're not touching Roman Josi.
Same for Philip Forsberg.
Same for Philip Forsberg. At this point, I think everybody who can be on the table is on the table for the Nashville Predators, including Juuse Saros. Do I think they will trade him? I do not. Do I think they could get a fat Tanner Jeannot cubed haul for Juuse Saros right now? I do. Do I think they're picking up the phone? I think they're picking up the phone. Do I think that they're going to seal a deal? Good heavens, I hope not. But I get why there's a conversation about him. I mean, if you are a team that's on the cusp of making the playoffs and your weakness is goaltending, sweet baby Jesus, you could get Juuse Saros in here for next to nothing for a Vezina quality goaltender.
Well, I don't know about next to nothing.
I mean, I'm saying as far as salary right now. I'm saying as far as like taking on a salary and stuff. I mean, obviously you're going to have to like cut off an appendage and sell your grandmother in the deal, but
yeah. Let's start. I think the argument for it is a lot of people are saying, if the Preds aren't going to be good the next couple of years, if they're going to be rebuilding, why do you need Juuse Saros? Why don't you, give some other people? And the other thing is that there's a Skarov right behind him. We can just play a Skarov. The back end of that first is I really think the Preds are trying to be patient with Askarov. They're not going to put him in a number 1 role until he's ready. And this kind of comes up with, is he going to, a lot of people are like, well, he'll definitely be the backup next year. I'm not quite so sure about that either, because you think about before this season, how little hockey he's been able to play because of his situation, A, with COVID, B, with, sounds like maybe his old team being a little vindictive about him wanting to come to America. He hasn't played a lot, and it wouldn't surprise me if they wanted him in the AHL as a full starter 1 more year, as opposed to being Juuse Saros' backup. So I think they're being really patient with Askarov. I don't think that should be part of the conversation until Askarov has proven he can be, a bona fide number 1 goaltender. The other part of that is that I don't necessarily think that tanking is the plan for the Nashville Predators. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, we need to be getting high draft picks and blah, 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 blah. I think draft picks are magic beans. Like you can draft 4th overall and get an absolute bust, as we've seen time and time again. In the NHL, you can get 1st overall and have a player wind up in the middle 6. We've seen that happen as well. I don't think the Predators are going to go that route. I think they may transition towards the younger people. I think you may see Cody Glass as more of the featured guy and Phil Tomasino as more of a featured guy. But what if you do that and they start to win?
Yeah.
What if you do that and then all of a sudden, the Preds are on a heater, going towards the playoffs with this new exciting young core, and all of a sudden you don't have a capable franchise game-stealing goaltender behind them. That's another factor. As for the trade factor, Anne, I think the Preds have to listen if there is an offer that blows their socks off. It's the LA Kings. Like if they're putting Alex Turcotte and or Quentin Byfield up there, I think, then it's like, okay, these are 2 prized forward prospects. One of them might be a franchise center. What are we doing here? What's the cost benefit? I think you're going to see that. I agree with you. I don't think he gets moved. The other thing, Ann, is just goaltending is just such a crapshoot in the NHL.
It is a mystery. It is a mystery.
I mean, you have 1st-round picks that wind up never playing an NHL game, and then you have undrafted guys from frickin' the Texas University club team that wind up becoming NHL superstars and all-stars.
Yeah.
like wherever Logan Thompson is from, like the fourth tier of what Canadian junior is. It's just such a crapshoot.
It
We've
is.
seen Vezina winners sign big money deals and immediately tank out. I think if you have a franchise goaltender, especially one who's been as consistent as Juuse Saros, I think you hold on to him for dear life.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. A bird in the hand is better than two in the bush, or whatever the old saying is. And I think what you have in Juuse Saros. You know that he is a franchise-changing goaltender. And, Yaroslav Askarov, I think we are seeing that same amount of amazing potential. And a shout out to the Predators scouts and goaltending coaches, because they really have a knack for developing quality goaltenders, but he's not ready. And I'm with you. I think down the road, Juuse Saros is who you're going to want to have long-term to give Yaroslav Askarov the opportunity to become whatever he's going to become. But they're going to pick up the phone, and I think they'll have conversations. And after this weekend, I really, I think we had talked about Dante Fabro may be gone at the trade deadline. At this point, I'm just buckle up, friends, because until Friday, we're on a roller coaster. We are in a glass case of emotion. We just, it could happen at any time. It's like going into labor. We don't know.
At this point, Dante Fabro may be the only person left in the Nashville. So we'll have to see. Again, we'll have more top stuff on this trade deadline moving forward throughout the week. Anne, where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at InsideThePreds.com. You can find me on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at ontheforecheck.com. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. And while you're there, be sure to follow the podcast at LO_Predators. Also, be sure to subscribe, even whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform. Hit that subscribe button. Really helps us out. And you'll be the first to know when we get new content out as well. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back with an all-new episode tomorrow.